everyone, and welcome to Divinely Empowered with Antonia. Today we have Robert Potter, who is an ET contactee, but an in-person contactee. He spent much time with Venusians and Pleiadians. He is an expert on the pyramids and an international speaker. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks so much for having me on your show, Antonia. Anything that has to do with the divine always excites me, so I'm happy to be here with you. How are you doing over there in jolly old England across the pond?
Jolly old England. Yeah, it's cold. It's fine. I'm looking forward to it getting warmer in spring, so that's nice. Whereabouts are you? You're somewhere in the States? Whereabouts?
I'm in Mount Shasta on a big mountain. It's kind of cold up here, but it's a beautiful location, very rural. I mean, the place, you can go out sometimes at 8 o'clock at night in the summer and it's a ghost town. It's crazy. I mean, when the main tourist season is here, it's very busy, but it's quite rural, very beautiful. We have lakes and natural glacial lake. The mountain is absolutely stunning, and there's some ancient mystical lore, stories of fairies and gnomes, and the Native Americans have been aware of an ancient civilization that lives inside the mountain.
Yeah, they have ships going inside the mountains, don't they?
Yes, my contact with the Venusians, I'm working with I'm able to ask questions through a friend of mine, Raymond Keller. He arranged a meeting for me with official meeting with the Venusians, but I'd met them. I met Valiant Thor in 2003 with another gentleman and two women. I met his wife, the blonde woman on the cover, or partner, what you call it. Her name is Jill or Jillian. And I met her in 2007 at a meeting in Las Vegas with Dr. Frank Strange, is the gentleman who wrote that book, and he's been going on board their craft since 1968, the first time we witnessed RFK's assassination, all kinds of stuff. It's so fascinating.
Let's rewind just a second in case people are unfamiliar with the word Venusian. It is people from Venus. So it's physical aliens or ETs or people who live in a different planet. So that's what he's saying. He has had physical contact with people from different planets.
Yeah, and the Pleiadians as well. This is a book my friend wrote, quite extensive, about the history of Venus, and talks about their service to Earth throughout history. They're our primary guardian planet, and they've been involved with us for 18 million years.
So The Stranger at the Pentagon is a book that I've read a while ago, which is absolutely fascinating. Do you want to just give that an overview for people who don't know, and who Valiant Thor is?
Okay, so I'd heard about this book a long time ago in 1979. My friend Raymond's just finishing a book about that. I wrote a brief thing, and I'm working on a more extensive series of chapters for that next book. But I should first say I had contact with a famous scientist. His great uncle invented the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, actually from Scotland. Scotland. Yeah, I believe it.
Really? It's
like private road, if I remember. Anyway, so his father invented the automatic transmission, the alternator, for Henry Ford. At the age of 15, he was pretty much the smartest kid in the room and studied the shockwave of the atomic bomb in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and with Leonard Katz and linear colliders like CERN, but much smaller. And then he went to work. The Air Force grabbed him at his 16th birthday, which is illegal, and they took him to Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara, where I went to school, a beautiful campus. He got a PhD in physics, and then he was 1963, at the age of 20, they were installing brand new radar sets. Okay, who's in charge of these new radar sets? They look around, this young kid, 20 years old, Fred Bell, this giant thing, electrical engineer, genius. And during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was complaining that they were burning the reports. So he pissed off the base commander in a motorcycle late at night, and they put him in a straitjacket. He said, "You've been seeing UFOs." He said, "Sir, we've all been seeing these ships coming in at 15,000 miles an hour," and spit out the codes like he did every day. They put him in a straitjacket. 4 hours later, they gave him an honorable discharge, and he went to work for NASA. He eventually did the same thing there and complained about the shoddy electrical work. And who's this kid, this 20-year-old complaining? They fired him. He filed suit at the ALCU, and then they came back They said, "Oh, Fred, will you be in charge of all electrical quality control at NASA?" In 1965 at the age of 22. And he said, no, he was already working with McDonnell Douglas on the Saturn and Apollo stuff. So when I met him, we were having a lot of experiences with the Pleiadians. Fast forward to my meeting with Dr. Frank Strange's in the 20s. But I heard about this book, and this book is about basically Valiant Thor had landed in a park in Alexandria, Virginia in 1957, 2 weeks after my birthday. And he, his ship landed, he did the remote, had to disappear, and then beep, and so he, a police chief was going to get, he was in a silver spacesuit. He said to me, no harm. And they have this ability to just make you not see things or stuff like that. So he ended up going to the Pentagon with a bunch of police officers in tow, and they went into Eisenhower. He went to shake his hand, and Secret Service and everyone goes, "Don't touch the president." He had a little book, and this book was written on crystal. It had a light language, and anyone who read it could understand. And what he was offering was for the government to, and the government was already working with Nazis that had fled to South America and to Antarctica, and that was Prescott Bush. George Bush Sr. was a naval officer. I have pictures of him with Martin Bormann, Reinhard Gehlen, Otto Skorzeny, Hitler's bodyguard, and of course Joseph Mengele, the bad boy. Goebbels, Mengele, Bormann, and Skorzeny when he was 19. So he was the greatest spy, became president. So the Nazis basically infiltrated America with the help of the big money people that were siding with them, the Harrimans. Yeah. So what happened was they were trying to counteract this. The moon base commander that I met was actually met Eisenhower on the tarmac in Muroc Air Force Base, and they went around to all the nuclear powers at the time. You need to stop testing. You will precipitate an axial flip. Finally, they listened, and what they decided to do was secretly go underground. So all the world's governments went underground in case they did precipitate an axial flip. The elite.
Is that a polar shift, you mean?
No, well, an axial flip is where the Earth switches from north to south pole. Magnetic flips are happening all the time. The poles are constantly moving. So they have explained to me that occurs naturally every 5,000 years. That will happen in 400 to 500 years. So they're saying not in our lifetime. So they will stop. They're not allowing any nuclear war. They're always in control of that behind the scenes. There's some complexities there. So let's get back to Valiant Thor. So he gets Eisenhower, Nixon, Pat Nixon, and Mamie Eisenhower were enthralled with him. He's very charming, very handsome. And so he was talking. He was a Secret Service agent and evangelical preacher. So quite a combination. So he had access to the corridors of power. He knew Edgar Hoover, and was he written a book about gangs and stuff. So he was going around because he wanted to know the truth. He was thinking that the angels in the Bible were spaceships. So it's correct in many ways. So he basically offered this book, will offer technology, sharing with the people advanced healing technologies, longevity, so the bellicose militarists, the religious potentiates, and the greedy financiers, and their control, which is was actually under the command of fallen angels inside the earth. The earth was kind of they were cast down in here. So this is actually a coup that was being taken place by the Venusians, called them the intruders or interlopers. They're now gone at the highest level. There's activities it's an interdimensional battle going on. But the force of God and the power of love is always It's been millions of years, and there's been a lot of problems, but the Earth is a bastion, is kind of the last battleground. So Dr. Frank, being a preacher, was up there talking, and this black woman, the secretary at the Pentagon, he was up there signing books, and the lady goes, "Dr. Strange's," and he's sending me, just a moment. And she goes, "Dr. Strange's," and he goes, "What?" And he goes, "Can I speak to you for a moment? And we need to speak privately." So he took time and went back into the little what do they call it, the rectory behind the stage there, and she said, he was showing a picture of Valiant Thor, which was taken by Augie Roberts, an Air Force photographer. They were told that some Venusians were going to be at Howard Menger's house, a friend of mine who I took to Egypt in 1991. Very famous guy that was breaking the story of contact with extraterrestrials in the 40s now. And he was on a show called Long John Nebel, it was kind of like the Art Bell of its day. Coast to Coast now is something, it's George Norrie is a naval intelligence officer. It's pathetic what they're doing. It's the government has a silence group. You guys had a very famous contactee named Sir George King. I met him. So he was very powerful, and he was having real contacts as well. So Valiant Thor's there, and so she goes, "I'll pick you up at your office. Now you're in the Secret Service. You can follow orders." She goes, "Yes." You can follow orders. So they get in there, and they're going through the Pentagon line in the parking lot. She takes them to the Pentagon. Very cold that morning, and everyone's opening their coats, and they have their badges outside. Because I don't have it. She goes, "Shut up." She goes, "I don't have it." He goes, "Be quiet. Do as I do." So he goes like this, and he got through 4 levels of security because the Venusians were projecting what's called transimagery, so the guards would think they would see
Doctor Who
badge.
Who had that, didn't he? Or Doctor Who always does that.
Yeah, well, maybe.
He's got this past. Well, he's got this past, doesn't he? Which is like nothing, and it's whatever past he needs is always in Doctor Who. He's got that little past.
Wow. Well, that's taken out of the Venusian playbook. So anyway, so he finally met him at the Pentagon, talked, and I'd had the same instance when I shook the hand of the commander. Her hand was like soft as a baby, and there are no fingerprints. So that's it. They're not marked. They're not born. They haven't in that situation. So the gentleman that held the camera, his name is Alan, and he's 2,400 years old. That dude's energy was amazing. Now
2,400 years old.
He was a magus in the Zoroastrian tradition, born under Darius the Great. He was a beekeeper, and his energy was very amazing. And when he held the camera, it was like a rock. It was like he held it by the tendon. It never moved. It was amazing. So he filmed a 28-minute interview I had with a moon-based commander that had to be cleared through their hierarchy, where he answered 28 questions. And many people were surprised. It was quite spiritual. They're not religious per se into dogma or church, but they do talk about Jesus Christ and recognize him as the highest incarnation possible in the physical galaxy alone. So there's a creator of this galaxy. We would know him as the theophonic angel, the one like unto God, or Archangel Michael, which is probably I wouldn't say it's a guy. It's probably a impersonal, masculine, feminine energy that ensouls this universe, just as you ensoul millions of lives within you, as above, so below. So there was a master on Venus named Sunat Kumar, an ascended master for something like 24 million years. So this master has been incarnating on worlds as a world teacher. And, so he was chosen because he was resident in the system to hold the descent of the Creator's Son. And for 3.5 years, he was the living word of God. So at that point in time, 2,000 years ago, it was kind of judging the fallen, Satonian rebellion that took place. This is kind of a long history, and many people are upset and get triggered because they hate the churches, and they're lumping in the dogma and the control and all the negative things of religion with this. I'll say what I always say was with the sweet baby Jesus and the true teachings of love, forgiveness, and the main message is to do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. And all this
possible. Yeah. Instant healing's possible, and we just need to ascend enough to be able to do it.
Yep. So Dr. Frank said, well, where do you come from? He says, I come from the planet your Bible calls the morning star. He says, what do you think about Jesus Christ? And they said, Thor said, I know him well. So that's why Venusians don't need faith. They actually interact with those superluminal divine forces. So that's the mission. The mission is love and hope. It's not about spaceships and spacesuits. It's about transforming the individual consciousness one heart at a time and reorienting the individual. The earth is in a massive state of confusion due to the intruders and the interlopers and the programmed systems of a monetary system built on scarcity and lack that's controlled by the oligarchs. The criminals are called the Black Sun. These are elite families. Their lineages have had sex with the fallen angels, literally. That's the House of Windsor, the House of Bourbon, the House of Orange, Rockefellers, Rothschilds. Same thing in China. Everyone's working for the same boss. Now they're gone. They're being eliminated. So that's a good news. So Valiant Thor basically tried to take the message the governments would refuse to give up their control and power, their money, their systems of suffering because of their they could call in demons who would appear, and they were in control of the money system at that time. There were covenants 16,000 years ago that allowed them to literally own the earth, and the good guys had to acquiesce to that because it's like Star Wars. They were capable of blowing up worlds, and they don't do that anymore. They actually have councils, and anyone who starts doing that, it's pretty much understood that everyone's going to get you. So they always have been using deceit, lies, and within certain parameters, but they were skirting the laws of non-interference by having hybridized humans do the dirty work. So we've been aligned against it. Now let's talk about the good stuff.
Let's talk about the good stuff. So you've actually met all these amazing beings from Pleiades and Venus. So how do they look? What are they like? How would you know when you meet one? Tell me more about them.
My experiences with Fred Bell were augmented by another famous contactee named Gabriel Green, who was having contacts in the 50s. He was very advanced. He was later in his late 60s and 70s when I met him in the late 70s. And he was showing me, there was a lot of things I was having with Fred Bell. They were taking me out of my body constantly. So I would doing certain breathing exercises and meditation techniques, utilizing like the crystals and the pyramids that I have in my house that were help creating like an artificial portal, and the ships come in, they settle into the building. So I'm in the ship, and their frequency, they're picking you out of my body. So I was very young. I was 17 and 18. So this was hard to understand, but I'd come back down. I'd leave my body at like 11 or 12, maybe 1 in the morning. And I said, why is this always at night? And he said, well, the astral plane is asleep, and you can, there's no mental energy interference for what you're doing. And they would take me up, and I would have a lot of education in advanced metaphysical understanding of evolution and creation. And sometimes I come in and goes, you better take an Epsom salt bath before you go home. You're a little unstable. Lights would follow me down the hill, and then I'd go to my house, and the light would be following my car. I lived 1.5 miles down the hill. well, yeah, probably barely a mile. And
Mhm.
so I had a little like hillside behind there on Bluebird, and the light would be pulsing outside my window, and I'd be crying, "Who are you? Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you get out and talk? What's this cat and mouse game?" And finally, they arranged through Gabriel Green a spaceship to land in front of me, and I learned a lot of metaphysical, how they work, their ability to monitor every thought, word, deed, and action of every person on Earth that they want. They don't interfere with people's free will, so their integrity is very amazing. Of course, there's so many other things. You can go into deep metaphysical studies here, but basically, I started meeting the Venusians at Gabriel Green's house. I said, "What do they wear?" And he says, "Well, they love the 50s." I go, "The 50s, really?" And so,
so many 50s dresses. Honestly, it suits my body type and the whole Marilyn sort of thing with their A-line
yeah,
dresses. I wear a lot of 50s stuff as well. It's the best. It's the best
yeah,
tailoring.
it was like James Dean. So I go into this store. It was called a TikTok back then, not a 7-Eleven. And in comes a mint condition 1957 blue and white Chevy with three beautiful girls with hair like you on the back, none of them looking over 29 or 30. A guy in the front dressed like American Graffiti, and there is the famous guy sitting next to Valiant Thor, Don Thor. Valiant Thor is not from Venus. He appeared there one day, but he was adopted by the Thor family, and Valiant Thor was in there, and he had penny loafers with a penny in it. He had a white T-shirt. He had a blue jeans, And I get up to the counter, and there's another guy who was supposed to be psychic and stuff. He's real deal. He's pretty aware. His name's Michael Elysion. But I said, that's the visitor, and he goes, what? And I go, shh. So he comes up, and he gets in front of me, and he goes, I'll have a pack of Camels. And so I telepathically said to him, and he looked at me, and I said, go ahead, smoke it. I know you guys don't smoke. And so he goes, I'll have some matches. Now, keep in mind, this is like 1981. So he goes, I'll have a pack of matches. You could have lit up in the store. So he's pounding the cigarettes, does this big drama. These beautiful women are skipping through the store. They had the energy of happy children, just full of joy, absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And then he looks at me. He goes like this, and he's smoking. He takes it like this, and he rolled it up in his shirt sleeve. So that was one of my first encounters. I was telepathically aware. I've had other encounters. I got a phone call from outer space. I went up, and a spaceship landed in front of me because in Laguna Beach, I saw the ships. They were coming down physically. I had a lot of experiences like that. And actually, the famous Pleiadian Semyasi was coming into Fred's house. She was a beautiful woman. And I always had the feeling who she was. And then in 1989, he and I were physically transported out of the house, and I was physically transported back at 5 a.m. And they allowed me to remember that for about 10 minutes. I remembered the experience. So my life has gone upward from then. I was working with a contactee from South America, and then Dr. Frank Stranges and I became very close. And I went to his inner circle meetings where I was initiated into the order of Melchizedek by a man on board the ship who comes down. They can manufacture a human body. His name is Uniah. So they have a body that they can produce, even for those that aren't in our atmosphere. So it's a fascinating technology. It's kind of woo-woo. This kind of stuff I'm sharing because it's time that people understand the real truth of what's going on, and not to get caught in. And by the way, I'm just a human here. I am a starseed. I am from Venus. I know that, but it doesn't make me anything special. I'm just a postman delivering a message. And my friend who's written these books and all these beautiful books, there's a Venusian. This one talking about the lives. Dr. Raymond Keller, an amazing soul who has absolute integrity. And more. and
Wow.
he got to live on Venus for 2.5 months. He also studied under Gabriel Green, and this is
What
a
was
picture.
Venus like? What's Venus like then if you go and live on there? Very advanced technologically.
Well, they have a higher dimensional Venus, but on the physical Venus, they live mostly in the northern and the southern hemisphere, probably around Canada, upper Canada, and they do have a volcano there. They gave me a little vision once. It's kind of a chiffon type of atmosphere, kind of a lemony yellow sky because of the volcano. But I didn't smell any sulfur. But of course, it was a psychic vision, and so they have a contingent there. They reside in the higher dimension, but they come down in service to the Earth. So they're our guardian planet, and it's mostly defensive. When we started nuclear power, they became much more interested. They started putting up radio sondes throughout the galaxy, throughout the solar system. So no matter where they are, no asteroid, no planet will ever come between their radio communications. That's a giant tower that's on the backside of the moon, on Mars, on everywhere else you see. Those are Venusian installations, and no one messes with them. Venusians are the highest manifestation of love in this solar system, and as such, at this time, the head of the Solar Council, which is on Saturn, it's kind of like a judicial court. She is the head of that. Her name is Lady Orda, and that's her now. I can show some other pictures, but so it's based not on genetics, but on lifetimes of service. And the Venusians are a matriarchal society patterned after the bees. Tesla talked about the bees. Tesla was from Venus, born on Venus. And he was placed on a Serbian Orthodox priest's doorstep. So they were trying to get this information to us. And unfortunately, the control has been very difficult to overcome. But now is a time where the Earth frequencies are changing. So mankind's rising and more open with the internet. We understand. We know something's going on. Everyone knows that it's not like just ineptness. This is a very coordinated effort by a group of very bad, traitorous people, quite evil, unbelievably corrupt. Their activities, they basically create wars for profit. Every war is a result of a influence by the fallen Anunnaki, who were instrumental in our DNA from Neanderthal times. But they're working tirelessly behind the scenes. They're here and living amongst us. I'd say at least 12,000, and probably on any given day, even 20 to 25,000.
Venusians or Pleiadians, or combination.
Venusians, Pleiadians as well. They have to go through the Venusians. Everything goes through the Venusians, no matter what federation they're here from. They have to go through the local confederation. Our confederation, it's called the Galactic Confederation of Light. It's comprised of 601 worlds in 51 solar systems. We will be the 602nd world to enter this confederation when we become worthy, and that worthiness has to come from us. They're not going to clean up the Earth.
No, that's our job.
They're removing the bad guys that were influencing us, and they're taking that technology and they're handing it over to humanity.
So you're saying that there's 12,000. So 12,000 Venusians who are currently on Earth, but you'd say around. And how many Pleiadians do you think?
I have no idea of the Pleiadian forces. I know I know generally the Venusians. That comes from my friend Raymond Keller. He's close friends.
Where are they? Where are they? Are we interacting with?
It could be your neighbor.
So are we actually interacting with Venusians on the daily?
Many people are.
How would we recognize them?
You wouldn't. Hebrews 13:2. Be ye kind to strangers, lest ye entertain angels unaware. Everyone I've met looks pretty much like us. If they do take up a lifetime mission here, they will age and go under the normal process, like my friend Omnek, who came from Venus. Her story is amazing. She's older now, and she's a very beautiful woman, and she was living on the fifth dimension or the astral plane. And the masters asked her, they wanted to see what a person coming from the fifth dimension would be like, how their body would withstand the earth environment. And they told her it's going to be a very hard life. It'll be your last lifetime. You're going to blah, blah, blah. And she said, okay, I'll do it. And they kept telling her, no, it's going to be really bad. Are you ready? Are you ready? And what happened was that she owed the karma. She was a twin during the French Revolution. And the Venusians wear a red beret in a nod to the French Revolution, because that was one of the primary, they pushed back against the reptilian takeover agenda. Draco reptilian, it's a genetic, in a way it's a genetic battle, but it's really more about the orientation. They're beautiful reptilians, and they're beautiful Draco bloodlines as well, not to mention the crazy mantis, all these things that kind of freak people out. But once we get used to that, we'll understand that it's all big one family, and everyone's truly connected by the law of one and the divine creator. So the Venusians, I'll just say that they've been working very tirelessly behind the scenes, and these 12,000 Venusians have Earth-based families. The moon-based commander that I met, she said, I've been working here for at least 300 years. It's probably much longer, but she is an oversoul. She's not like an incarnated. She's the moon-based commander. She's in charge of the moon.
What's an oversoul?
An oversoul, you have parallel lifetimes and parallel Earths. There's, from what I understand, there's 8 of them, and that you have various bodies, and what we think of time doesn't exist. So it's kind of like this, everything's happening all at once. It's beyond my understanding. Raymond Keller described it. He had a near-death experience. But so the moon-based commander I met, she was working with Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Monroe. She was one of the left-nesseurs of the Masonic Lodge in France. Now, everyone hates the Masonic Lodge, but they were good. That was the resistance of the day. Okay. Benjamin Franklin, she worked with. He was the head of the Venus Lodge, and get what they did. They said, sorry, King, we're gonna do a Boston Tea Party. We're not paying your taxes. So the committees of correspondence in the American Revolution were split between following the French complete overthrow or following the British. They were very tied to the British, the central banks, and the trade there. So they were motivated by that. But she told me, I said to Benjamin Franklin, did you tell him about electricity? And she kind of quietly said, I may have led him into areas of research that led to that discovery. And I said, did Thomas Jefferson know you were from a Venusian? Because Raymond had told me the story where, he was out in his tobacco farm or whatever, and he came in from a long day, and she was sitting on his couch in his locked study, and she handed him papers. So wow. She said, the tall intellectual Virginian suspected I may have been from another realm. So this is how they work, influencing in areas of science, education. They're in the military, these things. There's a good Illuminati too. And they were fighting, they were working with Helena Petrova Blavatsky in the French Revolution. And the bad guys took a little page out of that book. They were all wearing masks, and they had these supposedly mask balls, but these were to bring all the intelligence, and some people would infiltrate them, but they would know who they are. And then the other people, there were these giant castles. So the initiates would be going into separate rooms where they were working in advanced spiritual psychic mystery school type of development. And they were working behind the scenes, and they actually used Napoleon wholeheartedly to stave off the kind of royal, to kick ass on the royal families a bit. But they staved that off. And Napoleon was an upstart, huge ego and all that stuff. We saw the movie, and it's probably not too far from the truth. But they had 2 particular incarnations, and one was Alfonso Colombo, who was a South American adept, and he was trained, and his twin flame, who he met, she was previously Eoled, and he was guy, Leonidas, in the previous incarnation. And they both worked. She worked with Napoleon as his muse and kind of guiding him what to do. And they were in communication telepathically to make sure that the battle, they did not want the bloodshed because this was orchestrated by the fallen beings who literally feed on suffering and death. And
Loosh.
it's going to get, that kind of stuff. So, but this is how the light forces work behind the scenes. And now it's time that mankind get the revelation and the truth and the power of ascension, the power of the love of God, and the power of the I am presence of the presence of God in everything. And it's a frequency. It's a frequency, and it's a belief, and it's a knowing. And it's the kingdom of God has always been here in every moment. And there's many people ascending all the time. As a planet, we're a long way off, but we're coming to some people call it the harvest. Ooh, what's the harvest? The harvest.
Tell us about the harvest.
It's great. It's graduation time. That's it.
Great.
It's graduation time.
Go on, tell us. So about the harvest, the solar flash, what's happening? What's upcoming with all of this?
The solar flash is a series of flashes that are going to culminate in a big one. I don't know when exactly, but I don't have it with me right here, but Alon said we're going through a hydrogen cloud, which we talked about before the talk. That's 55 million miles long. And the temperature in outer space outside the Earth's atmosphere to Pluto is normally zero, absolute zero. It's now over 10,000 degrees. So when a solar flare comes, which is a natural cycle of changes, it does cause upheaval on various planets, especially on the Earth. The sun sends out an S wave, and the Earth responds and gives a P wave. Now the Earth is out of harmony, out of sync with the universal law. We are the ones out of sync. We're the monkey wrench in the chain. So the Earth sends back a signal, and so the sun's energy shifts and causes earthquakes, and that's what we're seeing now. I'm going to recommend people look at creativesociety.com. That is a group of scientists, and there's another one called observerranch.com or .org or something, but they're very strongly observing, and many scientists have observed the heating. They're keeping that from the people. They're trying to tell you it's solar warm or it's earth-based warming, which is true, but the number one cause of warming is not gas farts or hairspray. It's actually from nuclear radiation that we've put up here. So the Earth is losing its protective layer, which is actually causing mutations in humans. The strong will survive, is what's going to happen here. Those that are not of the frequency are going to pass away. And if they've done some stupid things by listening to those that want to depopulate the planet, they're going to pass over. Let's not worry about that because we're all immortal. We're all eternal souls. This is a fact.
We're shiny bodies.
Yeah, shining bodies of light. So the solar flash is a series of flashes. It's not just one. It's a series of flashes that are breaking it down. We are protected and shielded by the massive motherships, but they're going to have to release that energy. We have to face the full force. They've interfered with nuclear bombs. They've been cleaning up all the nuclear tests. There were always green fireballs exploding after these tests, and that was the Venusians releasing boron gas. We would have died and been mutants by now had it not been for our brothers and sisters from Venus who are saved this planet thousands of times. I'll tell you one time it's kind of cool. In Greece, they were fighting off a Saurian invasion of kind of like the little Velociraptor ones. They've been filmed inside the pyramids down in Mexico and Teotihuacan. And the entire Venusian fleet was here. The Queen of Venus, her name was Victoria at the time. This in the time of Greece. And in the final battle, her mothership crash landed on Mount Olympus. So we have the stories of the gods. Now, the Olympians or the Macedonians probably at that time were the generals wanted victory in war, and they weren't interfering with the humans. They were just protecting the earth from that invasion that would have turned us into a snack stand, so to speak. So they were building, they had statues of her, and they were sacrificing animals. And she came down, she was really pissed. She goes, she kicked pushed over a statue and said, I am not a god, and I'm certainly not a god of war. Stop sacrificing animals. Get your act together.
What goddess would she have been? Athena or what goddess was she for our legends?
I don't know what she was called that time. Aphrodite and
Aphrodite's Athena's war. Athena is a female god of one of the war ones. Aphrodite is the pretty one.
Athena is the god of wisdom. Aphrodite is the god of the goddess of love, and her son Eros. They actually were living. The Venusians were very much involved in Sparta, in Turkey at the time. That was a city that was never conquered. The Trojan horse took them down, but that was a giant portal, one of the great portals, the remnants to the other dimensions. This planet was filled with portals that sunk in Atlantis. That was why the Earth was a highly sought after planet, because the portals could go to different worlds. And, so there's a lot of exopolitical information there, but I don't want any of this to seem scary or harmful, because God has a plan, and that evil that's been here is gone, and everyone can move forward. Ignore the governments now. They're just talking heads. All the people on television are lying. A lot of people that you think are alive are dead. They have robots. They do have some clones. Most of those are gone. A lot of the bad guys that you think are around and playing this drama on television, I'm going to tell you, I don't think we're going to have an election this year.
Do you know? What do you think is going to happen in its place?
I have no idea, but my intuition is telling me that we're gonna kick over the bucket, and the truth is going to come out. There's tremendous help from the higher dimensions, and they're very much accelerated, because there will be an asteroid coming between the Earth and the Moon in 2029, 400 miles above the Earth's atmosphere. It's called the Porthos. We've had a lot of movies about it, and all fear and anything, but unless we get together and are prepared for that, there's going to be more devastation. And realize this is a natural occurrence. There's natural weather changes taking place, augmented by government directed energy weapons and atmospheric rivers. And it's very horrific right now. Many people are losing their lives in natural disasters. And those that have the ability to help do not. So we're working on behind the scenes. I'm working with a group called Ground Command, and the actual ownership of the Earth was transferred to humanity in 2012.
Woohoo!
So we're in the process. That person was based on her DNA, and you can't even get your family to come together. Can you imagine Earth people who think they can fix the world, trying to figure it out? No, the power has been given to one person, and she's the one in charge of the true quantum system, the alpha quantum system that was actually owned by Marduk, or we would know him as Sataniel, a general from the Orion Wars. These beings live hundreds of thousands of years, even. It's crazy on that dimension. So their plans are very long-lived, and they do take over planets by engineering them. They know the DNA. It's like a psychologist with a master's degree manipulating a 4-year-old. So mankind has to,
we're the 4-year-olds, damn it.
Yeah. Pull back the curtain of the Wizard of Oz and step into our own sovereignty and power. And you don't need to go through any unraveling. It's already been done. They have no money. The money's been leaving. All of their false money, their black magic bonds, all that has been disconnected from source. And the portals and the technologies that have been used against us are being eliminated. Now, this woman at one of my conferences, she goes, well, they're planning for a new financial system. And she speaks with a Carolina drawl. But they said, one of my people go, well, they're not doing anything. What's going to happen? And she said, well, if they don't listen to the brothers, they'll be annihilated. And that's what's happening. They're being annihilated.
Wow.
Rothschild's dead. They're dropping like flies right now. So there's a group called the Reds, retired extremely dangerous generals, is who they are. And these guys have made a living on wars. They meet in submarines. Go, okay, I'm going to bomb this bait. Well, I have the contract to build the schools and the roads. Okay, good. We'll bomb that one later. And then I get the contract. So this is how these guys work. They're actually working for black nobility, traitors to humanity. They're called the Black Sun. You can look at Jupiter Ascending, and you can look at that. The new Dune one is kind of, there's a similar type of.
I just watched that on Saturday.
Drama. I watched it last night. The remake part 2. I was we're gonna have a part 3. So
yeah,
a little bit. Hollywood's giving you the story. Of course, they have to have murders and death and destruction in almost everything, which is a frequency. So you got to be.
There's a lot of black magic in movies for sure. There's a lot of frequencies to bring people down and to affect you and to get into your system and feed off you. You know, so it's quite dangerous watching. If you get really absorbed in it and get really affected by it, it's not a very good idea to watch it. If you can just watch it and be very blasé, then it doesn't really affect you. But it's not necessarily a good idea to be watching all this doom and gloom and aggressive TV.
Right. So I'll say this woman here, and I don't know what your time is. I can go over, but this woman came here at the age of 147 on the astral plane. Now, she was in the higher dimension, and her father was a scientist. Her mother died in childbirth, so he couldn't. It was hard for him to hang around his daughter. He missed her so much. But her uncle, Odin, was working on a teleportation device.
I want one of them.
And
desperate for a teleportation device. Really want one. Trying to figure out how to do it with spiritually, but I haven't figured that out either yet.
You can't. Valiant Thor dematerializes like that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I need to come and materialize and teach me how to do it. I've got quite a lot of cities, so I'm just waiting for that one to come through.
Yeah, they'll come when the time is right, and it's a trap. You can get caught in ego and stuff like that. Read Autobiography of a Yogi, and you'll learn about the Tiger Swami and the perfume saint who, they were kind of, you can get carried away with that. So
I know, but all my cities are around healing. So that is sort of, it's good for other people more than it's good for me. And that's what they care about. Figuring out how to do instant healing of all diseases is what my trajectory is. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting pretty close to a lot of it, which is pretty fun. But I don't know the side ones. Yeah, I really want telekinesis, teleportation. That would just be super useful. But
I was a massage therapist for many years. In fact, I had a couple famous British. One of my clients was Peter Brown, the manager of the Beatles.
Oh, right, nice.
Brian Epstein's lover, and I spent like a couple years with him. He'd get massages. I would give him training. I taught him how to swim. And he was, Peter Brown and Paul say you can do it okay, get buried at Gibraltar Reef Train. He had all these pictures. He told me lots of great Beatles stories. I love the Beatles. And so he introduced me to some people. So I did a lot of healing back in my day, and kind of moved into, the author, and I'm working on my book. So this woman, so now tell us
about her and tell us about your book, and then tell us your offerings, and then a final word. Okay, we have to keep it under an hour if we can.
Okay, so real quickly, what happens is her uncle and she agrees to go to the Earth, and her uncle, they say a mantra, and they show up on the physical plane of Venus. He carries her into the city of Rats, which is an interdimensional portal from the 5th and the 4th dimension. She acclimatizes for about 2 weeks, and then she heads to Earth, and she landed in a monastery in Tibet. I believe it's a Katsupuri monastery. It's kind of a hidden thing, and there she was meeting with that's why all of the Buddhas are flying in the sky in the lotus flowers, because the Venusian have a transportation device that they're both holding in their hand that when they activate it, opens up into a transportation vehicle. So that's
flying carpet.
Right. The Lemurians went to, after Lemuria sank, they went to South America, Tibet, and other places. So the Tibetans are actually Lemurians. Anyway, so she lives there for a couple of years and learns English and comes acclimatized to the physical plane, and she used to take over the lifetime of the girl from the French Revolution, who, when they said, where is Francois, or whatever her name was, and she said, I'm her, and she got beheaded for her sister. So in this lifetime, she was to die in a car accident, and so they, at the appointed time, they got in a car and they followed the bus. When the bus crashed, the Venusians, her uncle and a Martian, went on and removed that little girl's body, put it in the trunk, and she changed the clothes out. They took the pen on her shirt. Her mother was an alcoholic and was sending her to her grandmother, who hadn't seen her in 3 years. And during her gestation period, she hovered around the mother so she would impress her frequency with the mother. So she passed, and finally she did reveal to everyone that she was a Venusian. And so she wrote this beautiful book, available on my website, From Venus I Came, Angels Don't Cry, and My Message. And I cried like a baby during Angels Don't Cry. Her story is amazing. She's spoken at my conference 3 times. She'll be in Germany this year. So if we could bring up my website there, I'd like to share that I do have a summer conference every year. And Raymond Keller, and you were invited to come for free if you can make it to Mount Shasta. And I'm going to have quite a few.
What is it? I'd love to speak at it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I actually, unfortunately, and I'd like to give a shout out to Dr. Scott Warner, a guy who was curing cancer and who worked closely with Saint Germain. He passed away yesterday, so he and his wife will not be coming. So it's possible, but you're going to have to make a commitment, like tomorrow, if you want to come. I could put you in.
I'll talk to you after. We'll finish the show and we'll keep talking. I'm going to tell you a little bit
about it. We'll have a chat about it.
Chat about it. I can make commitments. I'm pretty I'm a doer.
Okay, if you'd like to bring up my website, you want to do that?
Luz?
Yeah, she's in. Luz, is she there?
He's supposed to, like you did before. She said you need to put it like you did before.
Yeah, I had already done that. I thought so. I'm gonna share screen. I'm gonna go to window, and here it is. I'm gonna right there. I'm gonna share. So there it is. So this is my Mount Shasta. Can you see that? Is that on the screen now? Okay. So this is Mount Shasta Summer Conference. This is my website, thepromiserevealed.net. I'm just going to take you straight. You can click that first banner when it's up. It'll take you to this page. So I've been doing this. This is my 10th conference in 10 years. I have some very famous contactees. This man I told you, Raymond Keller, and I'm going to give you his contact. Lived on Venus for 2.5 months. He's a Venusian. He's writing a book. Vivian Chauvet, a contactee of the Arcturians. This guy is a Venusian contactee, very high level. He's been to Venus. He's been to Ganymede. He's been inside the Earth in 3 different locations. This gentleman, Dr. Kiva Makete Fall, is from Senegal. He's a Dogon elder and is an expert on the planet Sirius. Brad Olson, Alex Collier, the very famous brother of mine, who I've known for years, very close. Deborah Gusti, a new person, and Paula Venus. These are the 2 that will not be coming. Scott, this is a gentleman who's been having experiences with spaceships landing in front of him. He's amazing. A healer, researcher, a MUFON.
Amazing.
Spiritual. So it's a great thing. So we have
I'm free. I can come. I just checked my schedule.
Yeah, you can get it's really kind of cool. So you can read all the information there. But I want to say
we're going to put it below in the description for everybody who would like to follow up.
You get 5 days camping. You come on the 17th, 5 days camping and 4 days of speakers. Workshops are separate for $450 right now. That's a very good price. Some conferences are like $400 for 2 days or something. So I try to make it economical, and you can even go camping if you want to go on the less expensive. So I try to have as real contactees, and a bunch of them. So when we have a sky watch, they're off the hook. So they come and they show themselves to support us. And it's not really about the silver spaceships, the spacesuits. It's about the love that we hold in the community. And all of us black sheep, all of us people who've been called crazy, get together and we rock the house and have music, and I got yoga classes, and it's amazing. We have a wonderful time up there.
That sounds amazing.
Right.
Wonderful. So where can people get a hold of you? So that's your website. Is that the best place to find you, as well as your
my Facebook pages are linked, but I have lots of YouTubes. I've told some of these stories before. You're new to me, so I'm sharing kind of like my original content. I'm tossed away by many people who don't believe it. I have, maybe next time, if you like, I could actually play video record. I can't play videos. They want those to be shared only with my inner circle, or people who are aware. It's just, the trolling is just horrendous. So if you buy my book, it's only $30. You get that, or have an inner circle, you join for life. You get a lot of premium content for $59, and you can watch the recordings. You can listen to the voice recorded messages, and there's a lot of images of them I probably should have shared, but
go on, show us some images before we close. Let's see some of your amazing images.
Okay, well, I can take you through a couple. I'll take you through. I don't know. You might get carried away here, because there's some amazing images of these of Venusians. So I'm just going to open up.
I want to see what the Venusians look like.
Right. We'll show you the Venusian images, and here we go. So I'm going to open up. There's Omnik as a young girl. And I'm going to pull this up and get them all lined up ready for you.
Amazing.
I'm going to show you the two women who came from Venus, born on Earth, and ascended in a form of translation, in a form of ascension called translation. So, and I'm going to prove to you that they live a long time as well. So I got a picture. Do I have the Valiant Thor crew? Here they are. So I guess I can, let me get this up. I'll go through these real quick, and I'll take you back to Valiant Thor and at Howard Benger's house, and I'll show you the three people that I met. So we're going to start off with, let's see, we'll start off with Valiant Thor, and he's quite handsome. I got some great stories about him. So here's Valiant Thor on the right. I met him in 2003.
Can we put it up? And I'm going to add that to the stage a second. So
can you see him?
Yes, there we go. I can see it now.
Okay, this is the guy that came in the 57 Chevy, and I met her in 2007. She came into the Inner Circle meeting. Dr. Frank gave me these actual originals and a slide from August C. Roberts. There was about 20 people, and oddly enough, they were speaking an African language with clucking sound. They were supposed to be African reporters. They were like, and so no one could understand them. And there were reports that one of them was seen jumping over a 15-foot fence. So, yeah, I mean, so we're looking at some, the wonderful abilities they have are quite cool. Now, I'm going to share a picture of the moon base commander I met that I can share, because this is not her. Can you see her? The black? Yeah, that's Commander Rains. This is at Giant Rock, a famous convention in the desert of California, where all the contactees were meeting when the governments wouldn't tell the truth. All the starseeds were gathering. And here she is. She has had many. This is a woman who met Benjamin Franklin. She's quite beautiful, amazingly deep blue eyes. And I took out the picture, but on the left is a famous radio guy in the 40s and the 50s named Long John Neville. And the one on the right is Frank Scully, the guy that everyone knows who created the X-Files. So that's a real guy here. Now I'm going to share you. This was kind of fun. I like this one because this is the beautiful Venusians. This is a more modern one, and I can share with you actually what they look like. And I'm going to have you guess. There was an artist that so I better, where did that picture go? I'm going to share this one first. I'm going to share the picture of the Queen of Venus in 1972 when she was with my friend Raymond Keller. So can you see that one? Yeah. So Raymond in 1972 took a picture with her. He met her at the same guy, and she was coming in as Dolores Barrios, a UFO researcher, but in reality, she was a dual citizen of Venus. That story, how she ascended, she lived on Earth. She's 400 or 500. She's born in 1585, so you can do the math. So 2000 shows she's 1585, 1685, 1785, 1985. Yeah, she's 400 and something years old now. So she ascended to the Queen of Venus, and she didn't die on Earth. She was 230 years, and was taken to Venus. And that's why she's in the position. She has a very long history on Earth and understands the entire situation. So you see how young she is there. And you can believe it or not, and we don't really care. I'm just here to share the message. And they told me not to bother with what people actually think. So now I'm going to share one more picture, or I got two more, but I'm going to share the modern day one. When Raymond was on Venus, he was able to look at the Akashic records. They don't normally let people go back to Earth, look at the Akashic records. But when they went up there, the queen didn't know that she was going to be nominated as the new queen. So the previous queen, which is a Chinese saint named Lady Mazu, who calmed the Jade Ocean, you could research that. She went to Venus, and after her ceremony, where she got into a little lotus flower in the middle of a stadium with a couple 100,000 people with a holographic display of her lifetimes, the ascended master El Moria, known as the accidental apostle Lord Dismas, had a staff, and he said the new queen of Venus is Lady Orta, sitting right next to Raymond. So she gets up and assumes her queenly duties and invited him to stay, and he stayed for 2.5 months on Venus. He was able to look into the past Akashic records of his own life because he's a historian, a researcher, and that's where these books came from. So in one of the final things, would you like to go into the past? And she said, where would you like to go? Now notice she's holding something here. She's holding something here as well. So she said, where would you like to go? And he said, well, I'd like to go to back when you met George Adamski. When you were talking, do you know the story of the famous George Adamski?
No.
Okay, George Adamski was the first contactee in 1952 called Contact in the Desert.
I've heard of Contact in the Desert. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a modern day show that's kind of owned by the government. They don't want any contactees, and they know nothing about a contact in the desert. I'm sorry. I had a real contact in the desert. A spaceship landed in front of me, not far from where this other contact took place. No one wants to hear the story. It's okay. It's okay. They'll figure it out one day. But it's $1 billion industry right now. Everyone's, the contactee, and I know this, and I know what timeline, and just focus within and focus on building a new Earth is what I'm going to say. So I'm going to share this final image here. And this is the beautiful two Venusians. These women were born. One was born in, again, like 1895 in India, and she was a guide for the East India Company when the British came, right? And they said, we need you to show us around. We want to get up there and take control, right? So here we have the woman on the right is from India. Look at the beautiful light and love in their eyes. These are ascended masters. They work together in Andhra Pradesh in the upper regions near Hardwar, Lakshmanjula, in the gateway to the higher Himalayas, into Badrinath and these higher places where some of the masters were residing. And this woman on the left went there when she was 20. I think, let's see, she was born in 2000. So yeah, she was like 29 or 30, and she went to India to work in the Christian socialist movement during the Great Depression. You think the depression was bad here? Imagine in India. So the woman on the left, Lady Columba, went up there, and they served together for several years, helping the people. Now, the woman on the right, there's the Queen of Venus. The woman on the right was guiding the East India Company, and they were coming back from like a 2-week journey, and they were coming down the final phase from up in the mountains down to the thing, and a beggar was on the side of the road. He was injured, and he said, "There's George Adamski," and that's the Queen of Venus. When she landed, she told him, "Tell him I'm a man." But that this girl back here, if we go back to her, the master and the English said, "Leave that beggar, give him some food and water." She goes, "I can't leave him. He's going to be hurt. He needs to help down the hill." He said, "You will not get paid." And she said, "So be it," something like that. She helped this guy down, took 2 days down, nursed him down the hill with food and water. And he got to the bottom, and he said, "You have great compassion." He stood up. I'm not ill. They dematerialized, and she became a dual citizen of Venus. So this is how they work. Now, the other woman on the left was a secretary to some of the contactees in the 50s. And she was she was lying in her bed one day in Arizona. She said, "I wonder why I don't get to go to Venus." That night, they picked her up. They beamed her up, and she was held underneath the ship, and she was taken out over the ocean. And they came down, and there's a cloaked space platform out there, actually of people from the Earth who are invisible. And if planes get lost or something, but they're cloaked off the Pacific Ocean out there. And so there's a lot of space platforms. There's one in the etheric over the Gobi Desert called Shambhala the Greater. And they've moved Shambhala the Lesser from beneath Shangri-La to South America now. Anyway, so she ended up going to Venus. She lived there for 4 years, and she was traveling into the future and wrote this incredible book. And she handed it to Raymond with that picture of those two women. This picture of them was taken at that meeting in 2015. They beamed into the woods. Some guy saw a flash of light and go, "Who are you?" And they go, and they said, she said, "I'm Lady Columba, and I'm Lady Aurora. We're here to congratulate Cosmic Ray on the publication of his 2 books."
Amazing.
They had quite an energy and aura. It was a very small gathering, and she handed him the transcript. She wanted to write that book, but no one would accept it as real. They wanted to call it fiction. So Raymond wrote this. This is about her going to a future Earth, and is very much talking about the evacuation of a parallel Earth. Thank you for your time.
Amazing. So any final words of wisdom before we close?
I'm going to go back to Paul and John. Love is all you need. All you need is love. Wow, 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 wow. And think of,
wonderful.
When you think of the Venusians and the Red Beret when they're on official mission, can you think of an artist who might have had a contact with a Venusian? He changed his name.
Prince.
That's right. She wore a raspberry beret. Yeah.
Interesting. I've seen him play. He's incredible.
Yeah. He changed his name to a symbol. That symbol is the symbol of Venus.
Wow. Thank you so much, Robert.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. We'll chat.
I'll keep talking to you in just a minute. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.